For 20 years, he was a ghost, locked away in a tiny room, erased from the world. No school, no friends, no escape. His own family held the key to his prison, controlling every second of his life. The last time anyone saw him, he was a boy. When he was found, he was 32, emaciated, and willing to risk everything for one desperate chance at freedom. The truth was buried for decades until the fire. I'm Marina. With me, I have my best friend Laura, and this is a special GRIMM.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 132 rooms, 157 suspects, one dead body, one wildly eccentric detective, one disastrous state dinner. The Residence is a screwball whodunit series set among the eclectic staff of the world's most famous mansion, the White House, from Shondaland, with an all-star cast, including Uzo Aduba as Rye Detective Cordelia Cup. Watch The Residence, now, only on Netflix.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
So tonight we have a special edition of GRIMM.
Special edition.
Yes.
I don't know why I had to say that after you.
Okay. Department of Redundancy Department. Tonight we're covering the allegations against Kimberly Sullivan, which if you are from Connecticut, this has been all over the news. This happened in Waterbury, Connecticut, which is pretty close to us. Mm-hmm. Close enough.
Too close.
Yep. And it's also definitely national news.
Yes, so, it is. It made it onto ABC News and all that. Yep.
And my husband sent me an article from USA Today. Yep. So that's how you know it's a big
Bad.
deal.
Yep.
It's a big deal.
That means it's also sensational because that's what they like to pick up on.
It's not good.
Yep.
Yep. I got the majority of my information from the arrest warrant for Kimberly Sullivan, but
I
also
like a good source.
Oh, yep. I love official documentation.
Me too, because it just is. Like those
they
are the
have
facts.
The facts,
yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I also read several articles about the case from Connecticut Public Radio, Eyewitness News Channel 3, the Connecticut Post, News Times, and USA Today.
I like it.
Now, I'm going to cover the decades of abuse allegedly committed by Kimberly Sullivan against her stepson. His name has not been released. He's referred only as male victim 1 in the arrest warrant.
I was wondering, because I've heard her name, of course, all over the news.
Yes.
Wow.
They have not released his name, nor do I know if they ever will, unless he comes out on his own. But for ease of discussion, I'm going to call him John because I just think that's way easier. Yeah. That's a made-up name. His name is not John. Nobody come after me. I don't know what his name is.
Yep.
But it's just easier to refer to him as something other than male victim 1. And also to note, Kimberly Sullivan has only been arrested at this point, and what I'm reading and what my case is about, these are from the allegations in the arrest warrant. My understanding is that she intends to plead not guilty and is contesting all of this. So we all know Kimberly is innocent until proven guilty. So I just want to be clear that I am presenting this in a story-like manner like we do with GRIMM, and I pulled the information from the arrest warrant, but this is not an indication that I'm saying that these are all true. These are just the facts that are out there right now.
And it is, I was going to make a joke about, of course you would say that as the lawyer, but it is a fair point because this is the risk that we have to take when, like, this is the first time we're doing kind of an in the moment, like, while this is happening case. And this is the risk of, like, we don't know what's going to come out at trial. No. It could be, who knows what will be uncovered. So I think it's interesting. I'm interested because I did not read the arrest. What was it? Affidavit?
Arrest warrant.
Words. But I'm interested to hear what happened. I want to know the background. It is truly a sensational, horrible story from the highlights that I know. But it is a fair point. So it is, and this is I was going to say trial, but a test, a tryout, a pilot, if you will, on doing kind of like this extra special edition.
Yes.
So let us know what you think.
Current news.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's the other note. This case is unfolding as we speak. So full information is limited. It's sort of dribbling in with different news articles as they investigate it. So the case may be a little choppier or scarcer than usual. But I was going to give myself a complex not knowing Kimberly Sullivan's great-great-grandmother's name. But
did you go on Find a Grave? I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh. I looked her up on 23andMe after that. Did you see that?
They're like going to sell the data.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And people that gave their DNA already signed off on the sale of it. What a nightmare. So if you murdered somebody and you wanted to know your genealogy, hide your kids, hide your wives.
Because they're probably in a database.
Okay, so let's get into it.
No more laughing.
And no more laughter. No more happiness.
Yeah.
February 17th, 2025. 8:45 p.m. Firefighters responding to a 911 call arrived at a home on Blake Street in Waterbury, Connecticut, smoke pouring from the house. The 911 call had been made by Kimberly Sullivan, the resident of the home, who told the dispatcher that her stepson was injured and needed an ambulance. Firefighters would soon discover just how true that was. They entered the premises to locate the 32-year-old stepson, John, not his real name, Sullivan. As soon as they found him, it was clear his suffering went far beyond smoke inhalation. John was 5 foot 9 inches and weighed only 68 pounds.
That's like what a 4-year-old should weigh. Maybe not 4, but
a little older than 4, because my 4-year-old's 40 pounds. But that's like, he's the size of a child.
That's crazy.
His hair was matted, he was dirty, and his teeth were rotten. Before first responders arrived, he had already collapsed. A firefighter carried him out and rushed him to an ambulance. In the ambulance, John was treated for smoke inhalation and admitted to setting the fire himself. He told first responders, quote, "I wanted my freedom." He was then brought to St. Mary's Hospital in Waterbury for treatment before being transferred to another unnamed facility as his condition worsened. When he was admitted to the hospital at 2:51 a.m. on February 18th, doctors feared respiratory failure and immediately intubated him. As they examined him further, the grim reality set in. John looked much younger than his stated age. He was suffering from cachexia, also known as wasting syndrome, a condition typically seen in patients with advanced cancer or severe chronic illness, marked by a loss of more than 10% of body weight, including muscle mass and fat.
I'm getting total goosebumps. That's insane.
Awful. Medical staff documented John's severe malnourishment, noting that his BMI was 11. To put that in perspective, anything under 13 is considered life-threatening. Finney's upset about it too.
I don't know if that came through. Marina's cat just went flying down the stairs.
Finney's upset about it too.
Yeah. Holy shit.
His body had consumed itself, leaving behind sharp, protruding bones, sunken clavicles. Doctors also issued a warning. John was at risk for refeeding syndrome, a condition that occurs when a severely malnourished body is suddenly introduced to food and fluids. His system was so depleted that even properly processing nutrition could be fatal.
Oh my God.
Medical evaluations painted an even more devastating picture. John had severely limited strength and mobility. His arms lacked the ability to push or pull with any real force. His legs were too weak for even basic movements like bridging or pushing himself up. His core was so impaired that he struggled to control his own body for movement.
Oh my God.
His muscle tone was abnormal, his flexibility and strength nearly non-existent. And the damage extended beyond his muscles.
Oh, yeah.
John's endurance was almost completely gone. His activity tolerance was minimal, his balance was poor, and his overall motor function was severely impaired. Doctors noted bilateral knee contractures, a condition where the knees became so stiff that they can no longer fully extend.
Oh my God. Now, I when I heard it was all over the news, like how much he weighed and that he was in awful condition. But I just I knew 5'9" and only weighing 68 pounds, like, of course, incredibly malnourished, it doesn't even cover it.
No.
But I couldn't even imagine all of the things that went with it. It's just hearing this is just
like the weakness.
Insane.
His uncle saw him in the hospital after the fire and said he looked like a Holocaust survivor. Oh. And the prosecutor made the same comparison. Quote, he was, without exaggeration, akin to a survivor at Auschwitz death camp.
Wow.
And the same comparison was made about John's room in the Sullivan home. Firefighters traced the origin of the fire to an 8-by-9-foot storage room, one with a lock on the outside of the door.
Outside.
Specific. Waterbury police later described the condition as something out of a World War II concentration camp.
Jesus.
It's so insane to me that something like this can go on behind closed doors.
In a relatively... Okay, so I obviously had gone to the maps like the minute this all came out, because I'm just...
It's a nice neighborhood.
It's a completely normal looking, like, regular house. Like, I was like looking at the side of the house that his window's on and thinking to myself, actually, that when the Google Maps went through, he was probably suffering in there. Like, and it's now I'm like driving around town here being like, I wonder if there's somebody in that house. Like, it really is insane though. And it's heartbreaking because it's like, we'll get into it, but he had to set this fire to, like, it was, he had to have been thinking, I'm either going to die in this fire or get out and I'm okay. Like, those are the things that need to happen. God, the desperation to think that, and somebody could be happening. It's unfathomable.
I know. And it's something else to me too, for it to be in such a populated area.
Yes.
If you heard of a desolate farmhouse where someone was kept in the basement and you think, okay, wow, okay, sure.
No one can hear their screams or whatever.
Like, nobody saw him.
Yes.
Nobody.
And then saying your intro, I think it was your intro, when you said like the last time anyone saw him, he was a boy. That's just, I can't, anyway.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
It's just, it's heartbreaking. With John unable to speak due to his condition, police turned to Kimberly for some answers. What she told them, however, did little to answer the officers' questions. She explained that she woke up to smoke and found John's room on fire. She claimed he was yelling about a TV and she was telling him to get out of the room. When asked if John had any mental conditions, Kimberly said he had a lot of problems, but he wasn't diagnosed with anything because Craig, John's father, was against doctors.
Okay.
She said she had taken John to a psychiatrist a few times when he mentioned hurting himself in the past, but that was about it. Officials asked Kimberly about the lock that they found on the outside of John's room, but she denied ever locking him inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Dramatic page turn. As the days carried on, John's medical condition improved enough for police to interview him. On February 21st and March 6th. I mean, this is current.
Yeah, literally a few weeks ago.
Yep. Officers conducted 3 hours of interviews, during which John detailed 20 years of isolation and starvation, directly contradicting Kimberly's version of events and exposing the horrifying truth. John's earliest memories of being locked away in his room started at age 3.
Oh my God.
He remembered always being hungry and having to sneak out of his room at night to find food and water. When his family discovered the food wrappers in his room, that's when they installed a lock on his door.
What the fuck?
And as the years went on, the lock on the outside got upgraded to ensure that he could not get out. It started as a chain lock, then a padlock, and then they installed the slide lock.
Oh my God.
At first, he was only locked in during the night. Given the new restrictions, he recalled drinking water from the toilet because he was only given 2 cups of water a day.
Oh my God.
In 4th grade, John's struggles became impossible to ignore outside his home. His teachers noticed him stealing food from classmates and even scavenging through trash cans.
That's what I was wondering, was he still, so he was still going to school through all of this when he was little?
Yes.
This is like, almost like The Child Called It, where he like, school was his refuge, you know? Oh my God.
Oh, but this kid was so hungry. Concerned, the school contacted authorities, prompting a welfare check by police in 2005 at the request of Connecticut's Department of Children and Families. DCF has been asked. They have no records on John's family. None at all.
Really?
According to their policy, if an investigation into abuse or neglect does not result in substantiated findings, the records are expunged 5 years after the case is closed.
I mean, who knows what you can even look for? Like, what if they took the lock down? You know, I don't know. Like, or even just explained away one thing. I don't know.
And would they have even seen the lock? I mean, it's on a storage room.
Oh, I didn't even think. Yeah.
He was living in a storage room. So,
who knows?
They wouldn't. Yeah.
Wow.
But so even if the concerns had been raised, which the teachers at the school said they were, no official documentation remained. The police had documentation. They noted that when they visited the home in 2005, they found it clean. After speaking with John, they saw no immediate cause for concern. There were no apparent signs of abuse or neglect. What they didn't know is that John had been coached on what to say.
Of course, yep.
He later admitted that John later admitted that DCF workers had visited twice, but both times he was instructed by Kimberly to say that everything was fine.
And compared to like getting punched in the face, like hunger is comparatively invisible.
Right.
Wow.
After the second visit, he was pulled from school entirely, ensuring that no one could monitor him any further.
Oh, that makes me sick. I hate it.
Despite withdrawing John from school, the Sullivans continued making monthly tuition payments, $450, likely for their 2 daughters, and they also spent $180 per month on cigarettes. So it's not like they couldn't afford food.
Yep.
School officials attempted to continue to check on John, and they were especially concerned since he had been withdrawn from school. So they continued to make reports to DCF for welfare checks. The Sullivans told DCF no every time, and they filed a harassment complaint against them. Which should be another red flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if you're reporting it, this kid completely falls off the face of the earth, and now they sue you. Like, it's...
Yeah, if your kid's in school doing fine or just having some behavioral stuff, I can see at some point it's blurry, but this is, Oh,
and
man.
it's a hindsight is 2020 situation, but this is... Who would have known?
I know.
John's extended family was also kept at a distance. His uncle, Craig's brother, Kurt Sullivan, hadn't seen John since 2004 or 2005. Even then, he said John had been noticeably thin, quiet, and withdrawn. When Kurt tried to ask if everything was all right, Kimberly always stepped in, redirecting the conversation before John could answer. As the years passed, Kurt attempted to reach out, but there was never a response. His concern grew, and around 2015, he hired a private investigator.
Wow.
The investigator made one key suggestion: check for a death certificate. But there was not one.
For a death certificate for who?
For John.
Why?
Because he said that he disappeared and he hadn't seen him for decades, and they're like, check for a death certificate.
Oh, okay. I thought they were like claiming he had died or something. Okay.
Oh, no. The PI told the brother to look for, yes.
And did you mention, or will you talk about John's mom? Like where she was? Just
the biological mother?
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yes, I will. After he was pulled from school, there was no reason for John to leave the house. He was given worksheets for a time as a form of homeschooling, but his skill level never advanced.
Well, yeah, that's not... You need a little bit more than the paper.
Than the worksheets, yeah, for sure. When the Sullivan family moved to the Blake Street home, John started in a bedroom, but was soon moved to the small storage room on the second floor. The 8 by 9 foot space had a sloping ceiling, making it feel even smaller, and there was no heat in the winter or air conditioning in the summer.
We live in Connecticut, which is not Alaska or Canada, but it is pretty fucking cold.
And it gets hot, too, in the summer.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm sure there's, like, not ventilation,
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV Insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
John described his daily routine in a way that painted a bleak and isolating picture. He typically went to bed around 7:30 p.m., around Laura's bedtime.
Yeah, fair.
Though it varied with the seasons, and he woke up between 3 and 4:30 a.m. He said he didn't sleep well. Each morning around 8 a.m., he was let out of the room, but only for a short time. Just long enough to complete his chores, which could take anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours, depending on what Kimberly wanted him to do. Then late in the morning, he was locked back inside the room, and that's where he stayed for the rest of the day, for the rest of the night, until it was time to do chores again the next morning.
How could you do this to another human?
I don't know.
I'm not knowing any story. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. I know we're going to talk about this later, like what the defense possibly could be, but like, I just don't understand how you could do that to another human. It gives me, I know it's a bonus episode, so not everyone has heard it, but when I went over Jeannie, the child who had been kept in a room from when she was a child, like same thing. How can you deprive someone of
You're
life?
Mentally unwell.
Yeah,
you're very mentally ill.
Yeah, I guess
like
that's
no
true.
normal human being could do this.
Wow.
Yeah. When asked how often this happened, John was clear. Nearly every day. Some days he remained locked away for a full 24 hours. Others days he was let out briefly in the evening. In the months leading up to his death, his father started letting him out for longer periods on weekends, but only when Kimberly and his stepsisters were out of the house. By the way, that's his father's death,
I was just going to clarify
John's
that.
death. Yeah, sorry about that. Sometimes his father allowed him to help outside in the yard, but John couldn't even remember the last time he had truly left the property. The best he could estimate was when he was 14 or 15, he brought some brush to the dump with his father.
Wow.
John had 2 half-sisters who were allowed to have friends, and John was just their secret.
It's giving me like Fritzl vibes, like different things happening,
right,
obviously,
right.
But like that just control and like
someone
isolation.
locked away.
Yeah,
it's very bizarre. It's just weird that there's a life going on.
Yes,
outside.
That's what I mean, I realize this could have been happening anywhere, but I think because it's so close to us, it's like you could. I mean, I wasn't driving in that neighborhood, but like you could drive by a house that's right. happening in, and someone's just right there.
I know.
Oh my God.
I know. And I think that's what it is. I mean, we when we do our cases, we look at the areas, like we understand what we're talking about, but it is very different too when it's so close to home. Like, you know exactly what that city's like you know the area. So it just sort of changes your perspective on knowing how populated or unpopulated. You know what I'm saying? Just
it's like when we talked about Girl in the Box and Colleen Stan, and like she was out in just life. She was out around people and all that, but alone. And it's just like, if that had happened here, I think that would have had a different meaning for me.
Yes.
It's insane.
The Sullivans rarely had visitors at the house. When they did, John was forced into silence. He was threatened with food deprivation and extended lockdowns, which he could not fathom.
No.
It was already pretty bad.
Yep.
His father, half-sisters, and deceased grandmother all knew about him and his captivity. Now, his father, Craig, died in January 2024, further shrinking John's world and worsening the family's finances. So prior to his death, both Kimberly and Craig had filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy within 5 years, citing crushing credit card debt. The family also had 2 mortgages on the Blake Street home. Kimberly's only income was welfare, and her job history was limited to retail. Craig had worked as a shipper at GEM Manufacturing, but even with his income, the couple struggled to stay afloat. So I'm guessing that having financial struggles did not make anything better after Craig died.
Must have been the cigarettes.
Yeah. After Craig's death, John's existence became even more restricted.
God.
His only moments outside were to let the family dog out for no more than a minute each day.
Oh my God. Can you imagine, of all things, seeing a dog who loves you. You know, just like having that be your only sense of like kindness because it's a dog.
But dogs, that is the best. Dogs are better than humans.
Absolutely.
A lot of
I just
times.
like, I don't know why that extra breaks my heart. And then to think about, I'm not sure if we would know the details. Like, did he get to go to his father's funeral? Do you know what I mean? Like,
of course not.
Yeah. Like, oh
no,
God.
No, absolutely not.
Not that his father was doing him really any favors.
I know.
At this point, but still.
Yeah. So other than letting the dog out, John remained locked in his room for 22 to 24 hours at a time with less and less food. His meals were limited to small sandwiches, usually tuna or egg salad, and less than 2 bottles of water per day.
Also, I happen to be a fan of tuna and egg salad, but like
not in perpetuity.
No, and what if you really didn't like? Those are like really divisive tastes, you know?
They
like
are.
That's just like. You know,
I'm pretty sure he would have eaten anything.
No, I know.
Though.
I mean, I'm desperate for a joke because this is so sad.
I'm so sorry. Sad. But you're right. Those are very like people either love them or hate them.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
he said that the hunger never stopped. He told investigators, "quote I was hungry all day, every day, my entire life."
Oh God.
I'm thinking once he gets past the risk for refeeding syndrome. Can you just imagine what things are like the littlest joys in life that we take for granted? A piece of toasted bread, like where we enjoy it, but we don't enjoy it, you know?
And I still wonder, like, will he ever? Do you know what I mean? Or is there going to always be, is it always going to be tainted because it's like tied up in his torture?
You know, obviously he is going to have psychological issues, but he's a fighter and he's a survivor.
You're right.
And he made the decision, you know what, I'm going to die or I'm going to get my freedom. And how could you fight for that and then just, fold in.
Yeah.
What's the saying? I'm like, fold in the towel. That's not
throw in the towel
or fold.
Or fold. Yes.
With in cards.
Poker or you boxing? I don't know.
I don't think you fold in boxing.
No. You don't. No, that's the poker one.
Oh, okay.
The throw in the towel.
Oh, is boxing? Yes. Yeah. Okay. We were not on the same page there. Yeah, we got it.
But now that you're saying that, I also wonder, like, so he really at this point, it must have been that he was. Maybe you'll get to this, but like he had been letting the dog out, and he had been having these brief moments where he could get out, and. I'm wondering if at the same time that the food deprivation got worse and the torture that from that extent got worse, he also was being locked in more. So his chances of escape might have been worse. Like, I'm not saying he should have done anything differently. I'm just curious, like, I don't know, but maybe like where are you going to go? I don't know. Maybe he like needed to have people that would save him. He knew he couldn't overpower anyone. I just can't imagine. You must not be able to be thinking clearly either if you're barely eating. And
oh, I know.
I'm blown away.
I wonder if there's something to the fact that, he was there until his father passed away and then that year. So maybe he was thinking, at least I'm with my dad, and if I escape, I'm going to get my dad in trouble. Like, you never know.
True.
It was like his dad not being there anymore was the breaking point. Although I think per his recollection, the torture was worse afterwards, the abuse. John wanted to tell someone what was happening to him, but Kimberly made sure that he wouldn't. She warned him that if he ever spoke up, he would never see the light of day again.
Right. Well, and that's
I would
the
believe
risk.
That.
Totally. And that's like we talked about it with Colleen Stan. Like, why didn't she just run away? And there's other things associated with that one. But you must just think, what if I don't make it?
Right.
What if I don't get out? You know?
And one day while he was cleaning the house, he stumbled upon a gun. And after that, the fear of what Kimberly was capable of only grew stronger.
Oh, sure.
Which, it's crazy. You would think, here's the key to my freedom if you were literally a prisoner. But instead, he internalized it and said, wow, she can shoot me.
Yep. And I was just thinking, actually, like, I wonder if you would see physically that he had been abused, but I wonder if he thought, like, if I try to run away, will they know I ran away and clean up and get rid of the evidence? Or I don't know.
Oh,
like,
I know.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
John had mastered the art of disappearing. The night of the fire, authorities canvassed the neighborhood around the Blake Street home. When they asked a neighbor whether they saw a man who may have looked like a child, the neighbor was confused. They had no idea what they were talking about. Authorities did find someone who may have seen John more than a decade ago.
Oh.
Shay Baker, a neighbor, remembered something strange from her childhood. She said, quote, "I was in the backyard just on the swing set and I looked up at the back window. I saw a little boy there, or at least that's what I thought. He smiled and waved at me, so I waved back. And when I looked away for a second and turned back, he was gone."
I want to cry. Oh my God.
She said she didn't think much of it at the time. But it's like a movie. You see that, like the little boy in the window. It's like a movie. With nothing but time, John found ways to distract himself. He counted cars through his window, but even that came with a warning. Kimberly made it clear that no one was ever to see him. Over the years, she dangled false hope, promising to let him out if he could prove she could trust him, but that day never came. She never followed through.
Oh, yeah. You must think, like, maybe she is sick of it. She doesn't want, like, maybe after his father died, he thought, like, maybe she just doesn't want to handle me. Maybe if I am good enough, she'll just let me go.
Right.
Like, God, I can't, I'm always trying to put myself in somebody's shoes and think what they're thinking. And I just, how could I ever imagine?
No. Yeah, you have no experiences even remotely close to this.
Nope.
Even basic necessities were stripped away from John. As a child, he had a training potty in his room at night. But as he grew older, even that was taken away. He was forced to relieve himself in bottles and on newspaper. He actually devised a system using straws to drain urine out of the bottle through a hole in the window. Jeez. Like the straw was on the bottom and he couldn't get the window open. He was afraid to break it, but he found like a small hole. And for bowel movements, he had no choice but to squat over newspaper. He would roll it up, tie it with old t-shirt strings and throw it away when he was let out to do his chores.
Like awful. It's just inhumane.
It makes me sick to my stomach. Hygiene was almost non-existent.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
When he was still in school, he was bathed every other night, but after he was pulled out, that routine faded. By the time police interviewed him, he estimated it had been a year or two since his last bath.
My God.
He had 2 bottles of water in his room, one for drinking, and one he slowly filled over time, rationing tiny amounts each day in a desperate attempt to clean himself.
Oh my God.
He had no soap, no access to a shower. The closest thing he had to personal hygiene was a bottle of men's cologne. But that small bottle, once it was filled to the top, then he would do the best that he could to clean himself up.
My God. And at that point, like, I mean, the immediate thing when you hear like hygiene and not showering is like, oh, that must be like unpleasant. You're like, actually, it's not just gross. It's actually dangerous. You have to clean yourself and you have to like, he must have had so many problems with like, I don't even know, like your hair, your skin, infection.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't even go without lotion in the winter. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's unfathomable. It's unfathomable. John was asked to detail the day of the fire. February 17th started like any other day for him. In the morning, he was let out of his room to complete his chores, including clearing off Kimberly's car from snow. Afterward, he received his usual meal, 2 sandwiches and a snack, before being locked back inside. At 7 p.m., he was briefly let out again to replace a bulb on a Christmas decoration. When he couldn't get it to work, he was locked back inside.
Also, that for some reason, both the cleaning off the car and the Christmas bulb just like pissed me off. Like, not only are you allegedly torturing this poor man, this poor person, but you're on top of that just having him do your chores. Right. Like minute, tiny little chores you're going to have him do. I don't know why that is just additionally awful.
And that's in New England. Insulting. It's like you won't let him go outside to do anything other than clean the snow off the car.
Exactly.
But I'm surprised neighbors didn't see him unless they had I don't think they had a garage.
No, and they had like, I think a detached garage, but I don't think she was parking in it.
So he must have been bundled up because nobody ever saw him.
Yeah.
But,
maybe that's why.
So at sometime after 8 p.m., he heard Kimberly's bedroom door close. It was around then that he made his decision. He wasn't sure exactly when, but at some point that night, he resolved to start the fire. And his goal wasn't just to set a fire. It needed to be big enough that Kimberly would have to call the firefighters for help.
Yep.
It couldn't just be, small
like
enough for her to
put
douse.
It out with like a fire extinguisher.
Which, of course, increased the danger to him tenfold.
Totally.
Because he could either get burned or the smoke inhalation if she didn't come let him out of the room.
I don't even know how to... I mean, you're going to tell me, but like he's in this it's a small thing. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So he used hand sanitizer, printed paper, and a lighter that he had found in his late father's jacket to set the fire.
Oh my God. There is something ceremonious, meaningful.
Yes.
About that.
The hand sanitizer.
No, well, that too. I meant the lighter from his father's jacket.
Yes. Yep. And when police later asked how he knew the hand sanitizer was flammable, he said, "I read."
Wow. Oh, wow.
The fire started near his door next to a stack of games. As the flames grew, he stomped and yelled, trying to get Kimberly's attention.
Oh my God.
When she finally opened the door, he told her the radio had malfunctioned and started the fire. By then, the smoke and exhaustion had taken their toll, and he collapsed at the top of the stairs. Kimberly reacted quickly, but not in an attempt to get outside help. Instead, she forced John downstairs to wash his face, seemingly trying to ensure his appearance wouldn't raise any questions when the fire department arrived.
All right, add some muscle and some fat on him too. Come on.
I think that ship has sailed, Kimberly.
Wow.
As firefighters pulled up to the house, John's half-sister and her boyfriend had also arrived, and from inside, John heard Kimberly telling them to find a screwdriver to remove the locks on the door before anyone could see them.
I don't know how testimony is proven or anything, but if that's proven or how to whatever extent it can be, like that's pretty fucking damning.
It's going to be John's testimony.
I know. That's why I'm a little nervous. But
yeah.
Anyway.
John collapsed again. Kimberly shouted at him to get up, but this time he didn't move. He wanted the fire department to come in and find him, and thank God they did.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree.
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet.
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
Over the course of those 3 hours, John recounted all of this to investigators. Yep, that's the word.
Yep.
His medical conditions were well documented through hospital reports. Authorities also noted other details from their interactions with him, including Detective Pesci's attempt to help John use an iPad. It quickly became clear he had no idea how it worked.
Well, sure. Which says something like there's deeper than just an iPad. Like we've had since 2007-ish, we've had iPhones of some sort that have had that scrolling ability. And we've all, like even watching like my son, who we really try not to let, we try really hard not to let near that. And still he sees us do it. He like, so that is so telling. So telling.
And they also, at least for Connecticut prisons, if they have inmates that are going to be released back to society and they've been incarcerated for a while, they have programs to introduce them basically to the world because people that went in 20 years ago that haven't seen an iPhone, technology is shocking now.
Yep. And even then they probably still maybe see them with a lawyer or something. You have some exposure to the outdoor world, outside world, I mean.
Or you know what it is. Like your family can tell you about iPhones. Like it's crazy.
Jeez.
Yeah. He didn't know how to use it. Yep. Wow. Just fumbled with it. Beyond the physical toll, the psychological scars ran deep.
Oh, sure.
During a mental health assessment, John tested positive for both PTSD and severe depression.
That's it. Like I feel like the list has got to keep going.
Yeah. And developmentally, John was far behind where he should have been. His cognitive abilities were assessed at an adolescent level.
Yeah.
Tasks that required problem solving, multitasking, or sequencing overwhelmed him. He frequently shut down, needing constant verbal cues just to continue. And even basic appliances were foreign to him. He didn't know how to use a microwave.
Jeez. But yeah, like it just goes to like, why would he? Why?
Investigators are now working to put the pieces together, trying to understand how, for 2 decades, John remained hidden in plain sight, essentially. Retired State Police Lieutenant Paul Vance explained that their focus is on building a timeline and determining whether anyone else knew what was happening or even played a role in it. John's biological mother, who wished to remain unnamed, said she gave up custody of John when he was 6 months old. She provided the following statement to Channel 3.
Dramatic page turn.
I'm so sorry. 32 years ago, due to personal reasons and for the full benefit of my son, I made the gut-wrenching decision to give full custody to my ex-husband. This was the most painful, emotional decision any mother can make, but I thought he would have a better life. Oh. In retrospect, this did not come to pass. For the last 30 years, my family and I have searched for him to reconnect, only to be turned away and shut out. The last few days have been so shocking, disturbing, and disgusting that they seem unreal. I hope and pray we can all begin to heal and help my son lead a full, happy, loving life. I know deep in my heart I have always been there for him and always will. Please grant us the time, peace, and respect as we try to cope with this tragic situation.
Okay, I'm trying very hard to keep it together at the moment.
I'm sorry.
Because I'm just... anyway, I'm going to hold on to that as hope, because hoping he's able to move past this immediate trauma. I don't even know what to call it. And maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel on maybe establishing a healthy relationship with his mom. Mm-hmm. Gosh.
And his biological sister said she had also been looking for him most of her life. And definitely since he turned 18. She was shocked to hear the news, and his biological sister and mother have been talking together. So I think maybe he'll have a support system to go to. And there's also a GoFundMe. There was a charitable organization that created a GoFundMe for him to help him with like living expenses and getting back on his feet.
We can link that, of course.
Yes. Kimberly Sullivan was charged with first-degree assault, second-degree kidnapping, first-degree unlawful restraint, first-degree reckless endangerment, and cruelty to persons.
Good.
She's being represented by Ionis Colloidis, who said his client was stunned to hear the allegations and denied them. Yeah. She spent one night in jail before being released on a $300,000 bond.
People were not happy about that. But again, it's really, really, really hard because we don't have all the details. It seems very obvious, like hearing what you're talking about, but that's why we have due process, right? Like that's why we go through all this. So it's very hard. Very hard to hear that, and you want to just be able to place blame, and maybe we will. I don't know, but boy, that's people were very, very unhappy about the bond.
Yes, they were. And her attorney has already begun shifting responsibility to her late husband, Craig Sullivan. Attorney Colloidis stated, "He was the biological father. He was the one who dictated how his son would be raised." However, it remains unclear how he will counter the fact that John was only rescued in February 2025, which was 13 months after his father, the alleged abuser, died.
So to play devil's advocate a little bit, if that were true, if Kimberly really had no hand in it and had no power, and we just say she should have reported it and didn't, if we say all that's true, and then he died, and now she has this emaciated, abused man, what does she do? Do you know what I mean? Like, now I know obviously this was not the answer to keep abusing him. I'm not saying that, but I do, like, what the fuck do you do if you're in that situation? Like, yeah, the answer is go tell the police, whatever, but you're probably also going to be, now that was for sure the correct thing to do if that's what happened. But that's the only thing I can think of is like, if she was because that's like the Lacey Fletcher case, where at some point they were too far, where they were like, we can't tell anybody about this at this point.
It's like we should have intervened sooner, we didn't, and now it's like we're co-conspirators to this.
Right.
It does sort of give me, I suspect that they may launch as part of their defense that John was never locked in there. He was mentally unwell. He was given enough food, but he didn't eat it.
That's like Lacey Fletcher, right?
Yeah. Oh, they said that she ate sandwiches and Cheetos, and the mom came home every day and sat with her at lunch. So I suspect that will be something that they try. But I just, at some point, even if that were true, even if he was, which he gave 3 hours of interviews with police, I feel like it would be noted if he was like very mentally deficient or had extreme phobias or something. Yep. I forgot what I was going to say.
You were going to say at some point you still have to report, you have an obligation.
Yeah, you have to take responsibility. Like it's negligent for you to see somebody in this condition and not get them any help.
Exactly.
So,
and that's probably what if I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, and that's correct, like she must, on some level, maybe not a legal level, but she must know that, so that it's possible. I don't think so. But again, I don't know. I don't know the facts. I don't know. She hasn't gone to trial yet. So.
I know. So Colloidus acknowledged that he acknowledged that everyone's angry at Kimberly, but he urged patience as the full story unfolds. The attorney, I think, who was at the first court hearing, attorney Jason Spilka, didn't explain how John ended up in these conditions. Like, they're just saying that she's appalled by them and by the allegations, but they're not really announcing any sort of anything else that would lead to this situation. Okay. She claimed that John was not locked in the room and that he was provided food and shelter. Yeah. Okay, like those things can be true, but also insufficient. They can be insufficient. Yep. For those who had raised concerns over the years, her statement that he was taken care of didn't sit well. The former principal of John's elementary school, Barnard Elementary in Waterbury, he said, "We knew it, we reported it, and not a damn thing was done."
I mean, that's super hard because there's process and people are following process and doing what we think they're supposed to do. And again, as you said, hindsight's 2020. It's so easy to look back and be like, obviously we should have done that, but
and not only really that, hard. It's so, I mean, like, DCF's, and I know DCF has a horrible reputation. I get it. But how are they going to know?
That's what I mean. Like, there's a process, there's things to look for.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just, people need someone to blame and fingers to point because it is an atrocious situation.
It is. Kimberly's next court date is March 26, 2025, which is this Wednesday.
Yeah.
Which will be tomorrow when this episode comes out.
Okay.
As far as I estimate.
Yeah.
I have one more grim fact. It might not have any significance, but it is weird and it's coming up now in articles.
Okay.
So I feel like it's worth mentioning. So on July 16th, 1986, 16-year-old Laura Malio disappeared from Sylvan Lake Park in Watertown. Laura Malio had been out that night with her friend Kimberly Soto Santo, now Sullivan. Kimberly left Laura with Laura's 25-year-old male friend in the park and went home. Laura was clearly intoxicated, so her friend walked a mile to Oakville to get his car, but when he returned, Laura was gone. Her body was found on November 12th, 1986, in a wooded area off Sylvan Lake Road in Watertown. She had been raped and murdered.
Oh my God.
So Robert Burke was arrested and pleaded guilty to her murder. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison as part of a plea agreement. And Robert had multiple sexual assault convictions and lived across the street from where Laura was left stranded. But Laura's family has questioned all these years why Kimberly left her friend. And apparently Kimberly took Laura's purse when she left and the family didn't get it back for months.
What?
They said that Kimberly never spoke to them and never offered an apology. Now, Kimberly was never suspected as being part of this, but I do think it's very interesting that you just had a 32-year-old emaciated man found in your house, and also you were one of the last people to see a 16-year-old alive before they were raped and murdered. That's terrible luck.
Because that's a fact, right? That's not, that already was for sure that girl died.
Yep, for sure died, yes.
For sure Kimberly was there. So it's whatever the reason and whatever her involvement, whatever, it's still a, like, I haven't had that situation happen, for example.
That's why I had to include it. I haven't been the last person to see someone alive. So it's just
under those circumstances with,
right.
Yeah. Oh boy. So did you say her arraignment is, Wednesday? So
yes. Well, it's her next court hearing, but I believe that will be her, if she may have already been arraigned, but she's going to enter a not guilty plea on the 26th.
Interesting.
And we'll have to see how it unfolds. I think it's going to be, like, substantive updates will become fewer and farther in between.
Until it's like, when it's done, does like the court, does everything from the court proceedings become public record, or like will we be able to find out, or does it depend on the discretion of like the judge and the court, or like how does that work?
You have to have really compelling circumstances to seal court records, because the courts are very much about public access to knowledge. But the fact that they have kept him nameless leads me to believe that if they're going to continue that, then they're going to redact his name. Probably it might be too because he's been kept captive since he was a minor and still has the intellectual intelligence of an adolescent. So some of that may be sealed. But if it was public, then you could go get copies of it.
It also makes sense because it's so sensational that like obviously the media is going to jump on it. And even even us doing it, this was a hard one because like I know we talked about whether or not we were going to cover it and what it would look like, because there is an element of it where like I imagine in the future if John, which reminder, that's not his real name, just what we're calling him.
Correct.
But if he like stumbled upon our podcast, like did we do it justice? Is he like uncomfortable with everybody talking about him? Like I'm very private about like, even though I have a podcast, like I'm very private about like myself. Like they're just, if someone were sharing these details about me, that would make me really uncomfortable. So I'm very torn on this because obviously like it happened really close to us. It is truly an incredible, horrible, but incredible story, true story. So it's a very weird thing because part of it is like, he deserves to have his story told for sure. But like, what does he want? I don't know.
Right. Does he want people talking about him?
So I'm like a little, it's a hard thing, just so you all know, like we do talk about that and debate that. Like, is that the right thing? And, that gets on the whole topic of like true crime podcasts in the first place. But
correct.
It's, you all know, we try to be really respectful. And this is just, he deserves to have his story told. And I'm very interested in the outcome. And so it's the best we can do.
I'm in awe of people that have the resilience and determination to live in the most unthinkable conditions with the hope of a better future. I would crumble. Right.
Same.
Yeah. I'm not built for that type of situation. So
no.
Like I said, I will continue to keep an eye out for any updates. I don't think I'm going to do like every couple weeks, but maybe if, substantive changes happen, I can do an update episode. But if you're enjoying listening to GRIMM, please rate and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you don't miss any episodes. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, make our day by leaving us a written review. You can find our page on Facebook by searching GRIMM: a true crime podcast. If you want to subscribe to our Patreon, you can go to Patreon and search GRIMM: a true crime podcast. If subscriptions aren't your thing, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/GrimmCrimePodcast. If you donate $5 or more, we will send the first 200 donors a 4-inch GRIMM 4-inch GRIMM die cut sticker, which is pretty sweet.
You know what I just remembered? And I never interrupt the end, but we didn't talk about, we intentionally didn't do Patreon shoutouts.
Oh, yes. Okay,
so if you this whole time have been sitting here waiting for your name, I'm so sorry. Not going to happen this time, but it's because this is an off one, a special edition.
Correct.
We got too much into the story too quickly.
Correct.
But I just remembered as we were talking about that. So we didn't forget you.
Yes.
Tune in next time.
Yes.
Back to Marina.
We got your back. Follow us on Instagram at GRIMM Crime Podcast for information on future episodes and case photos. If you want to send us a case suggestion or just say hi, you can email us at grimmcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Listen, learn, and stay alive until next time, because the future is grim.